How is a complaint like an aircraft? The answer is not at all. Right? So if we're dealing with the kind of work which really matters, the kind of work which gets done at the edge of an enterprise where organizations try and differentiate themselves. Yeah, companies like you, again, we're talking about that digital transformation, talking about globalization, those smart connected markets. Differentiation has to come to a large degree, not exclusively, to a large degree in how you actually deliver an experience. So that stuff around the edge really, really matters. Managing stuff around the edge is not like managing the production of an aircraft. So here's 3 different kinds of work. First, make a widget. And on the right, I kind of talk a bit about quality and what quality looks like. What's really interesting about making widgets is it's pretty easy to specify what quality looks like, because you just focus on the product, the physical attributes of the product. Delivering quality means following the method. And if you follow the method, you're going to get lots of widgets that meet your spec. So that's cool. Now, here's a pretty radically different kind of work. Handling an emergency call, let's say fire department. Quality is different, right? Quality is different in that perspective. Quality is about meeting a critical goal that's quite easy to understand, and it's going to be something like minimize casualties, minimize damage to property. That's quite an easier to understand goal. Now, how do you deliver on that goal, though? Every situation is going to be very, very different. One fire is not like another fire. All right, maybe it's not a fire at all. Maybe it's tiddles stuck up a tree. You don't know in advance. Now, there are some people I've talked to who kind of say, well, yeah, so this is interesting because it's completely chaotic and you have to make it all up on the fly and so on. And that's not strictly true, because actually if you talk to people who do this, they actually have a lot of knowledge that is codified and managed about how to do things. But what they have is what you might call component plans for dealing with particular kinds of situations. So let's say, for example, dealing with someone stuck in a second floor of a building where there's a fire. There's some tactics that you follow to deal with that situation. And of course, when you arrive on a scene, there's going to be many things happening. And what you do is you assemble component plans to deal with the different facets of what's happening. So you don't just approach every new situation completely in isolation from others. You have component plans that you can assemble on the fly to deal with what's going on. Now let's talk about complaints, because complaints, I think, are especially interesting, because quality gets really, really complicated to define sometimes in this kind of situation. Quality is a trade-off. So it's actually very difficult to say what quality means. The commercial reality is such that it may not always be in your interest to do the very best thing you can do for a given customer. For some customers, quality is going to be about saying, we will bend over backwards to make sure that you are happy. For other customers, it might be, well, you know what? I'll offer you a $10 voucher. If you don't like it, well, whatever, go and speak to the other guy down the road, because you're not that profitable. Organizations with large populations of customers, they have to make very, very nuanced decisions like that. So quality is going to depend on who you are, what kind of resources you have at your disposal. It's essentially a kind of dynamic equation that you have to calculate at the time of the event. So quality in a lot of knowledge work is quite difficult to define. So prescription is actually a really bad thing to try. What you also find is, and Clay, in his talk earlier today, he showed that the chart of the process model which was just so complicated, you couldn't see the wood for the trees. And he was talking about exceptions. In these kind of situations, exceptions are the rule. And what you find is when people try and model out this kind of work, you end up with one kind of happy path, which is buried away somewhere in the middle, and then this huge forest of exceptions. And if you find yourself doing that, you know you are following the wrong path. If exceptions are the rule, then you need a different strategy for managing and supporting the work.